Okay, so we are now ready to replace the J button with the J slider. So let's J slider, pause slider equals new J slider. What do we want to give for parameters to this guy? Let's take a look. So for J slider, there are different constructors to choose from. Oh, you know what? Let me make sure So this is a valid constructor with no parameters in it, but what we can do is stick in a min, a max, and a current value. Okay? So what I'm thinking is, we want to have from -10 to 10, and the initial value would be 0. Let's say, unless we, well, I'm gonna start it with that. We might decide to change that initial value. -10, 10, 0. Depending on, if the model, some of these models might get loaded in with different, initial positions. So we might want to muck with that at some point later on. But for now, we'll just say that we'll just say it's at 0. Everything's at X, Y, and Z are all 0. So, so our slider goes from -10 to 10. Now, notice we needed a left and right button when we were using buttons, but for a slider, we just need one slider to do the job. We did need to add an action listener, but remember now, sliders need change listeners, right? So that's why we made transformer also be a change listener. Pause slider, add change listener, transformer. Okay. So that's kind of all of this stuff, because remember the action command was helping you to decide which way to go, up or down, basically, as you increment. But we don't need that with the slider, because we're just taking the slider's position, and we are taking care of both left and right, and instead of adding action listener, we're adding change listener. So if we just add that and just add the slider instead of adding the button, let's see what happens. Does that look right? Yeah, it looks right, looks right, looks right. Okay. We have sliders. Doesn't look like anything's happening. Let's do this. Let's, first of all, make sure I'm running what I think I'm running. Yeah, looks like I'm in there. Okay, let's set a breakpoint. Well, it did set up the panel because we had sliders, right? So it did this. We added the change listener. So let's just see. Oh, you know what? I forgot to set translation vector at the end, didn't I, with state change. Okay, now let's try. There we go. Now notice it's a little jumpy compared with the button because we're going exactly one at a time. Remember, integers instead of 0.1. So if we wanted smoother motion, we might have to futz around with it some and you know, make it move slower. Like maybe make this range minus 100 to 100, and then divide by 10. We could try that. Okay, let's try that right now. Let's see. So I'll have I'll make the slider go from minus 100 to 100. Oops. And then we'll we'll divide that by 10 and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's smoother. And it looks like, yeah, we're getting our values changing down here, okay. Notice this field expands to the width of the panel, which got wider because we did these sliders. We might want to set this up so that X is on top of there and that's down there, but I think that you got the basic idea. And so we did a lot of work to end up not having to do a lot of work to do the change. We just had to make sure our state change was working right, and you know, we just had to fix the transformer to implement a change listener and do that state change stuff, and then fix the panel. So yeah, so now JSlider's working.